Hi guys, welcome back and happy Easter. Wait, it is Easter, right? I haven't been seeing too many happy Easters on my timeline, so I don't know. I think it is Easter Day though, because although I don't celebrate Easter, I know there are a lot of Christians that follow me who do. So happy Easter to you guys. But today I actually want to focus on a topic that is kind of related, to Easter, the resurrection in a way, but Jesus, he represented love. He represented eternal, unconditional love. And I want to talk about self-love in this video. So I'll give you guys some time to sign on. It's been a while since I actually took a shot of this. And no, it's not alcohol. Hold on, let me make sure my phone doesn't fall because I see my phone is trying to slide. It's trying to slide, so let me see, can I prop it up with this so it doesn't fall back. How you guys doing? I'm doing great. I'm actually at the crib, as you guys can see, in my kitchen. And yeah, it's been a while since I've taken a shot of this. I kind of took a break from it, but you guys see I still have like about this much left. And I first got it when I was living out in Hollywood before I moved out here to South Central at the in the fall, in September of last year. And it came recommended because I went to this place called Taj Mahal Imports on Crenshaw Boulevard, and I was buying some oils out there last year. And one of the people, the guys who work at the store, he was telling me that this works wonders. It's not that I necessarily need it per se, but he was just like, I guess, trying to, put me on different products that they had at the store. And he was like, yeah, you need to try it out because this is some really good stuff. And so I was like, yeah, and he let me take like a shot of it, right? And y'all, when I first took a shot of this, I was just like, yuck. But, I actually believe in the benefits of it. And the crazy thing about medicine or any kind of substance that we take is that, of course, it has like its internal medicinal effect, right? Like that is inherent to the composition of the substance, right? But then we also have like the psychological benefit in which we believe something, it has a positive effect, so then it miraculously has a positive effect on us, like physically. And that's called the placebo effect, where we believe something to be true, believe something is going to be effective psychologically or physically, then it is. And so I don't know if it could be a combination of both, right? But I don't know, it's weird. I'm gonna take a shot now. And I was listening to these men talk yesterday. So he's like, you have to follow, you have to chase it with something sweet. I got water, but it's better to chase it with like some orange juice because it tastes. These men were at the bus stop yesterday and they were talking about black seed oil. It reminded me of my own black seed oil. I was like, oh, I got some black seed oil at home. But he was like, yeah, it tastes like motor oil. It was like, ugh. First of all, how do you know how motor oil tastes? I'm trying to think, do I have any orange juice? Yuck, I have ginger. Even ginger is strong. So yeah, that's that. I need to, that taste, y'all. It's a disgusting taste. It's very thick, but it has health benefits. And one person asked me, like, what are the health benefits of black seed oil? It's endless, you guys. Like, it has been said to help with a lot of different medical conditions. Cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure. Granted, I don't have any medical conditions, thank God, but it's very oily, so you don't want to take that much. So, but that's not what this video is about, kind of, in a way, because we're talking about self-love. And I wanted to kind of just say, this is also something else that I got CBD. Now, CBD is like really big out here on the West Coast, of course, because marijuana is legal. And like everybody is like getting onto this whole CBD thing. Where CBD is actually an extract from the marijuana plant. Is said to be non-psychoactive, which I think is great because people like myself, I can't smoke and I cannot have any marijuana, any traces of marijuana in my system. Considering where I work at a hospital, but this is another product that I got turned on to when I was actually out in Hollywood just the other day. And I was buying something and the lady gave me a sample of it and I tried it and I was just like, oh yes, I have to buy it. This costs like $27, but it's good. And the reason why I'm putting it on now is because I actually just got out of the shower, so it's best to do it when you have open pores. But it does open up your pores. And it has like this cool minty smell to it. And it's wonderful. It's called CBD Daily. So you guys check that out. But self-love, I think, is such a very important topic that a lot of us sometimes we forget about. Like, we forget to love ourselves. I think some of us, we're so compassionate. We're so loving up towards other people that we forget who needs love, you know? Because it's like, how can you love someone else if you don't love yourself? And when I'm talking about self-love in this video, is of course self-love can take the form in many different shapes, right? It comes in many different forms. So you can love yourself in what you eat, what you put into your body, what you even put on your body, how you dress, because what you wear and how you dress is going to communicate a certain message about who you are, right? And that message is going to it's going to resonate with other people, and those other people develop perceptions of you and respond to you in certain ways. So even something as simple as what we choose to wear, what we choose to put onto our bodies before we go outside in the public, that in and of itself can be a representation of self-love on so many different levels. So what we put in our bodies in terms of food, you know, even what I just took, this black seed oil, hopefully it has great benefits. I haven't noticed any adverse reactions in taking it. Drinking water, even people, you know, who use drugs, that says a lot about yourself. You know, like sometimes people, especially when it comes to marijuana, think, oh, it's not, you know, it's not harmful. You know, actually it helps me concentrate, or it helps me think better, or it helps me do this and do that, sleep better. I hear my clients say all the time, oh, marijuana helps me sleep better. And it's just like, does it, or is that just an excuse, you know? But when people engage in using these substances, whether illicit or over the counter, you know, it doesn't matter if it's legal or illegal. If it's abuse, you know, if you get to the point where you start using certain substances and it's abusive in a way, you have to ask yourself, are you making up excuses for why you're using it, or is it really, you know, self-harm? You know, it's self-abuse. And I think when people abuse, let's say, alcohol, and they drink large amounts of alcohol, that says a lot about how much they love themselves. You know, it's kind of like an indirect, subconscious way of communicating how much love they have for themselves based on how much they drink. Because think about it, you really care about your body, right? You really care about yourself. You're not going to indulge in large amounts of a harmful substance such as alcohol that we know is linked to cirrhosis of the liver. I mean, people die from alcohol abuse. You know, people develop chemical dependency towards alcohol, and it's not good. It affects the kidneys, it affects your liver, you know, and knowing that is something to be mindful of. I use alcohol as an example, but there are many other substances that people indulge in that are very harmful to one's health, psychological, emotional, and physical health. So when you're thinking about expressions of self-love, yeah, it's not only about what you put into your body, what you put on your body. It can manifest itself in even the things that you choose to do, the places you choose to go, places you choose to live, whether you think that you even deserve certain things in life, And of course, I know there's this whole thing about materialism, right? And some people want to say that, oh, well, they're not a materialistic person. They kind of settle for the insignificant so-called things in life, right? Things that really don't have or carry much material value, But one can also argue that if you believe that you're worthy of certain things, and you're going to make sure you get the finest things in life, the finest clothes. You're going to live in the nicest house or a condo, apartment or neighborhood, especially if you can afford it. Now, if you can't afford it, okay, it makes sense, right? But I mean, if you can afford to live in a nice neighborhood, why would you choose to live in the slum? I feel like those are ways that we can express love towards ourselves. Because if you really care about yourself, you're going to care about where you position yourself, where you position your body. You're going to make sure you don't position your body, yourself, in very dangerous places, You're going to take precaution because you love yourself. Some of us, when it comes to self-love, it's very easy. And I want you guys to comment, feel free to comment below, whether you struggle with this or whether you do pretty well with loving yourself, because we all, I think, we express it differently. And some of us struggle with it and some of us don't. And I do think that self-love is linked to childhood. So we have this internalization of an idea, representation of what love looks like, based on how we have been raised as children. Some of us have good internal working models of what love looks like in terms of how we were raised as children. And some of us, we have very terrible internal working models, basically representations or this idea of what love looks like. So if you were abused as a child, it's often said that you are more susceptible of abuse as an adult. You are more susceptible of being attracted to people who are abusive as adults, which kind of goes into the other manifestation of how we can love ourselves through relationships, So self-love can be manifested in what we wear, what we put into our bodies, where we position ourselves, where we live, and also the kind of relationships that we get ourselves involved in. Thanks, Ibrahim. And welcome to my live feed. I want you guys to feel free to share your thoughts and perspectives on this. But relationships is a really important one, because if anything can really reveal the degree to which we love or hate ourselves, I think it can be seen in the kind of relationships we get ourselves involved in, the kind of people that we attract, the kind of people that we fall in love with. And this is a big one. I think it's so difficult because a lot of us, I think we have control over who we are attracted to. We would like to believe that we're able to pick and choose our partners. Pick and choose who we're going to fall in love with, who we're going to date, who we're going to marry. But I think so much of that choice is subconscious. So yes, we may be able to choose our partners, but we do it on a very subconscious level that we're not even aware that we're attracted to a certain individual for certain reasons. Why is it that some women, not all, but some women are attracted to aggressive, abusive men? Why is it that some women find themselves in repeated patterns of being cheated on, of being attracted to men who aren't faithful, who use them and abuse them? You know, and some women find themselves, they're not able to get out of that. You know, it's like a curse, you know, and it really is a curse because it's something that is so deeply rooted and embedded in who they are as a person, as an individual. And of course, they want real love, but they don't know what real love looks like. And I think a lot of it boils down to how they view themselves, self worth. You know, how do you see yourself as a person? Do you see yourself as someone who is worthy of real love? You know, and I think it's worth taking time to define what love is. What does love look like to you? You know, if you had a magic wand and you could have it your way and be able to create this individual who loves you, what would that individual look like? What would they do? How would you know that that is love? Feel free to comment below. I want you guys to be more interactive and share your thoughts on this topic, because I feel like a lot of us find ourselves in very bad situations and very bad relationships. And it doesn't always have to be intimate dating, you know, relationships. It can be platonic relationships, you know, where you find yourself hanging out with the wrong people, being mistreated by the wrong people, because a lot of it is you don't know yourself. You don't even know what you deserve as an individual. And not to even mention professional relationships. That's a whole nother topic, which I would love to talk to you guys about, especially for those who are entrepreneurs or in business, because self-love, I mean, it seems like such a cliche topic, right? You know, love yourself. But as I said, it affects so many different facets of our lives. You know, when you're in business, I think I talk about this often a lot with the authors that I work with, that it's difficult to sell a product or service to a potential customer if you don't believe in that product or service. You don't even believe that whatever value that you have attached, whatever price that you have attached to that product or service, if you don't even believe that product or service is worth the assigned value, the price that you have attached to it, how can you sell it if you don't even believe it? And people can pick up on that. If you don't believe what you're trying to sell is worth it, people can easily pick up. You don't have to say, oh, I don't believe in this product. Your whole demeanor says it as you're standing there. You know, the way in which you communicate to the potential customer that is standing in front of you. You know, if you're at a book fair, you know, if you're at a convention, wherever you are and you're trying to sell this product, people can pick up on that. Even online, people can pick up on certain nuances of how you communicate this product to the world, you know, how you try to sell it to the world, the things that you say, how often do you post, you know. When someone asks you a question about the product, it's easy to tell if a person believes in that product. Same thing goes for yourself. It's easy to tell if a person believes in themselves or not. And I think that's what makes it so easy for abusers to be able to pinpoint their victims, be able to spot out their next victim, because they can tell if a person has self-worth. It all begins and starts with self-worth. Yes, it's cliche, you guys. And I know you guys probably have heard this over and over, but it's so true. Yet, people still find themselves in the same situations, making the same mistakes, and it hurts. These are very costly mistakes that people find themselves in. You know, dating the wrong person, being attracted to the wrong person, all because of something within them. And they're like asking themselves, why do I keep ending up with this same guy? What is it about me that attracts, excuse my language, ain't shit niggas? You know, women ask themselves these very questions. You know, what is it? And of course, on the outside, they may very well be very beautiful women. Physically beautiful, you know, emanating with beauty, you know, very glorious. But it's something on the inside. This is a great topic because so many have a distorted sense of what love is, be it self-love or giving love. Yes, some people struggle with being able to give love. They don't even have love to give to themselves, and they're trying to love someone else. How can you love someone else? And we wonder why the divorce rate in our country is 50%. I think it's a little bit over 50% nowadays. And even when I initially started doing research on marital divorce, it was like right at 50%. But I think now, like 20 years later, it's like over that. So I think it's sad to see how little we have progressed as a society, especially when it comes to relationships, in marriage and love. Because we are very flawed people, yes. And I think it's very easy to lean on this crutch of, oh, everybody makes mistakes. We're all flawed. So just because we have this belief, in society, right, and especially religion plays a role, that everyone is a sinner. We're all flawed people. So knowing that it's okay, right, whatever a person does to you, it's okay. Just forgive them. Accept their flaws and forgive them. Because, we make mistakes. If you look at yourself and you say, okay, I make mistakes, so I can forgive other people because I know that I make mistakes, so I can forgive them. But where do you draw the line? I do believe you attract parts of self, even those wounded parts. Exactly. That's why it's so important to know thyself. And people walk around with these facades. They're faking like they're confident, faking like they know themselves. They really don't know who they are. That's the whole point of therapy. It's important, you guys. Look at therapy as a luxury. I know some of you guys look at it like, I don't want to go to therapy because that's for crazy people. No, it is not, you guys. High functioning people who go to work, have high paying jobs, great salaries, they take advantage of going to therapy. Because it's through the process of therapy that a person is able to dig deep. The therapist is going to really go in there into your mind, into your subconscious, and be able to figure out, who are you? Not who society says you are, but really, who is this person? It's important to be able to have an awareness of who you are. What makes you tick? What do you like? What don't you like? Yes, relationships definitely can help you gain a better sense of yourself. But if you could find a therapist who you trust and develop a relationship with that therapist, especially if it's a very skilled therapist, and if they're psychodynamic, because there are different kinds of therapists out there, Predominantly, a lot of therapists, they use evidence-based treatment, and that evidence-based treatment is within the theoretical approach of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, cognitive behavioral therapy, it looks at your thoughts or your behaviors, but it doesn't really go that deep in terms of your childhood, your subconscious mind, looking at dreams that you may have had. It doesn't really go that deep. If you really want to go deep, and this may take years of therapy, you will want to find a therapist who is oriented in psychodynamic or psychoanalytic theory and therapy. Find a psychoanalysis or a therapist who says that their theoretical approach is psychodynamic. That's my approach. Now, I'm not licensed yet, so I can't, unfortunately, give you guys therapy, but I can point you guys in the right direction, because that's important. I've had colleagues who want to go deep in their therapy, and they end up with the wrong kind of therapist, because the therapist is like, oh, I'm CBT, They don't want to go there, because psychodynamic, it's an interesting process. You'll know if you have a psychodynamic therapist, because you're going to feel very, very much connected to your therapist, because they place emphasis on the therapeutic relationship. Most therapists, yes, they use the therapeutic relationship, as a mechanism for change, but a psychodynamic therapist is really going to use that relationship, so they're going to focus on the transference, the counter transference between you and the therapist. and they hone in, they use it as a mechanism for change. And it may feel like, dang, that my therapist, like they really know me. Like, it may feel like, whoa, you want to hide sometimes because they know a little bit too much about you. Just like, whoa, you feel very intimate. You feel very connected. It's almost like it is an intimate relationship that you have with your psychodynamic therapist. And it can be scary to know that someone knows so much about you, but it's not just they know. My phone is breaking up, but it's not just that they know about you, but you know about you. It's a process it's a parallel process. So of course, as your therapist is digging deep and uncovering these things and has an awareness and is tuning in to certain aspects of who you are, your identity, as it relates to different experiences you've gone through, you also, if you're open to the process, will develop an awareness, of who you are, So it's a parallel process, something that you and your therapist do together. But that's so important, and it's freeing. You feel so empowered, because it's not that you're just living life and walking through this difficult life in society not knowing who you are. Because when you don't know who you are, you can get taken advantage of so easily, in so many different aspects, But when you know who you are, you can walk with this boldness. You can walk with this confidence, And it's not that people won't try you. It's not that you become invincible to, being taken advantage of, because people are still going to try to do what they do, right? Like, these culprits who seek out their victims, who they're going to try to take advantage of and abuse, they aren't going anywhere. They will always exist. But at least you will be aware. You'll be very prepared. You will know how to interact with those people. You will know certain signs. You will know your own triggers, and be able to respond accordingly. Now you're speaking my language. I used to give my clients a handout called Love You Is Killing Me when I was an alcohol and drug case manager. It was good for self-reflection. It spoke to childhood traumas and why you may fall into one of the 9 types of love addiction. Okay, India, I like that. And feel free to share. Is that something, like a theory that you came up with, the 9 types of love addiction? That's pretty interesting. 9 types of love addiction. Yes, what you're talking about also is along the lines of Imago theory, who's a very well-renowned couples therapist, which he talks about how we attract different images of ourselves, right? So if we have a certain deficit, most likely it came from childhood, because that's more like psychodynamic theorists kind of look at the present. They look at your adult self through the lens of your childhood. They go way back, and some people don't like to go back. They're like, that's the past. I want to stay in the present. CBT is more in the here and now. Cognitive behavior therapists focus more on the here and now, the present. But it's important to go back, man, because some of us, we need that psychosurgery. We really do. We need to be able to go back and looking at your own childhood, you can look at the deficits that you experienced as a child, and it makes sense. It becomes an understanding of, through those deficits, why you attract certain people. I can speak to myself, I've done it before. I don't mind sharing my own experiences. Loving You Is Killing Me. Yes, I like that. Loving you. And so many people are killing themselves loving other people. You love other people so hard that how can you forget to love yourself? What is it that traps people in these kinds of relationships? It's like you're abusing yourself. It's important to know that. Like for me, I have come to an awareness, and I did this back in 2010. That I just had to come to an awareness and acceptance, because some of it is not so much when you have this awareness. Let's say you go to therapy and you come to this awareness of who you are and certain things, whether they're good or bad things about yourself. Some of it is not really about changing. You may not ever be able to change certain things about yourself because it's so deeply rooted in who you are. So for me, it wasn't my awareness, and I'm going to share with you guys in a minute. It wasn't so much about, me changing this. it was about me coming to an acceptance of it and knowing how to deal with it and approach it. So I'll go ahead and share with you guys. Some of you guys already know. Well, I am into the BDSM lifestyle. And with that, I like pain. I like physical pain. I don't know so much emotional pain, though. I don't know if I can bear too much emotion, but I do like physical pain. And I do like spankings. Not even just spankings, but I like beatings, right? And honestly, it can be traced to my childhood. Of course, I've talked about this before where, as a child, I got beat, as a lot of, adults have and can speak to their childhood growing up, especially if you're from the South. I was born and raised in Florida. Got my ass towed up, old fashioned school, slavery style ass whoopings. Take off all your clothes, lay across the bed, and get your ass whooped with an extension cord or cable cord kind of ass whooping, right? And I look at it, reflecting back. Of course, I've talked about this before. I look at it like it was abuse. Now my sibling may have a different experience if you were to talk to my sibling, but it's abuse, and that's how I conceptualize it. And with that, I realized that I had become attracted to men who were physically abusive. It's like something that I admit about myself that I like. And not to the point where it's like, okay, disrespectful, beat your ass and you end up with bruises and fuck. No, not like that, but it's more contained. And this is where I came to the realization in 2010 where I realized there was a whole lifestyle for this kind of thing. And there are people who also are like me who actually like pain. It's called masochism. The opposite of that would be sadism, where there are people who get off on administering pain. So it makes sense that a masochist would be attracted to a sadist. And that's pretty much has been my experience where, yeah, I've been coming across a lot of sadists, and it turns me on. But in having that awareness of myself, it makes sense, especially in terms of safety, to have certain safeguards in place. So it's not that, okay, you have this awareness of who you are and you just accept it and live with it. And no, you have to think about safety first, And that's where communication is important around this topic, because a lot of people, they want to be loved so much that they neglect the importance of self-care, taking care of yourself. Like if you don't think that you're worthy of being protected, no one is going to care. Like people just going to totally dismiss that, right? But you have to set those boundaries. And so it was important for me to have that conversation. I'm pretty much open about that when I begin to meet guys that I feel comfortable enough to open up and talk to about. And if it's a potential guy that I want to pursue a long-term relationship with, I have that conversation. I'm open about it, And I think when people ask me, oh, you're 35, you're beautiful, why is it that you're still single? Well, there's this thing here, and I'm honest about it. This is part about me that is different, than most women. Most women don't like pain. Most women are gonna say, "Oh, I like to be spanked." When I say spanked, I'm not talking about no light spanking. Most women, that's not their cup of tea. If you raise your hand at most women, they're gonna knock the shit out your ass, right? But for me, when it's confined and it's contained, and of course with consent, I'm okay with that, and it's not just about physical, it's more about a psychological kind of dominance that I'm attracted to. I'm attracted to men who exude a certain kind of dominance that sets the stage, that sets the course of the relationship. It's a power dynamic. I'm okay with power exchange. I'm okay with giving up my power to a man who I trust, who takes the power, in the relationship. And I know this might be a little bit too much for some of you guys, but it goes along the lines of this whole imago theory. And you guys look it up, Google it. I believe it's spelled IMAGO. IMAGO. Look it up, do some research on it, but it's very powerful. It's a very powerful theoretical framework for understanding, why people are attracted to certain people. It's just like I know you guys heard the saying that people fit together like a glove, right? So for me being a person who is attracted to, dominant men, that of course gives it away that I'm a submissive woman. It makes perfect sense for me to be attracted to dominant men. So with that kind of piece about who I am and my identity, yes, it makes sense that, a lot of men just aren't that. We don't live in a society that gives men permission to be dominant, so to speak. That's more of dominant men, I would say, is more of the minority. And I'm not talking about abusive men. I'm just talking about men who are okay with being in a powerful position, having power in their relationship. Traditionally, when I say traditional, I mean more in modern terms, men have been socialized to engage in a more egalitarian relationship with their partner, where the power dynamic is equal. And a lot of people who are watching this on social media can attest to this. I've had many conversations and made many posts about, women's preferences and even men's preferences when it comes to a relationship, in terms of splitting the bills and, who pays for the date, how much money should be spent towards the bills in terms of contribution of each partner. And most people say 50-50. A woman should contribute 50% towards the bills, and just as the man should contribute 50% towards the bills. Whereas I have a much different perspective on that. So that's just an example, but it's really important for us to know who are we in the context of a relationship and knowing the kind of love that you deserve. And don't get it twisted. Just because I like to be spanked don't mean that I like to be abused, because that's two different things. And I know where to draw the line, and I have drawn the line before, and it can get kind of blurry, I admit. It can be sometimes confusing to men, but that's where communication comes in, and the bottom line is that there has to be consent. It's always ongoing consent, and if there isn't conversation about it, then that's where the problems arise. So even for myself, yes, I am a woman who likes to give up power to my partner, my male partner, but I have enough respect for myself to know when things are not going right in that dynamic, and I know when and where to draw the line. So going back to self-love, like, you have to know your worth, because if not, you're just going to become a freaking doormat for someone. You're going to become a punching bag. You're going to become this object that a person takes advantage of and uses. And when they don't have a use, what do we do with things, with objects that we have no use for? We throw them out. You don't want to become that object that a person just throws out to the dumpster, to the trash, You don't want to become that. You want to be in a relationship with someone who appreciates you and who sees you as a person, sees you as an individual. Hello. And it makes a difference. So feel free for you guys to share your comments below. Let me know what you guys think. Hi, Divine. How are you? Let me know what you guys think, because no one, we're all human beings. No one deserves to be treated like a piece of shit, like an object. We're human beings. And when you sense that something is not right, it's not, listen to your instincts. I tell everybody this, people they'll have these hunches, and they'll begin to feel like, okay, dang, is it just something ain't right, I wonder, is this person taking advantage of me? Like, listen to your instincts. A lot of times people, they ignore it, and they just like, oh, well, no. Because they don't want, I think our mind has a way of protecting ourselves from reality, in a sense. So, reality can be a harsh thing to consume, to come to terms with, to visualize, to experience. So people shut themselves outside from reality, shut it off, and it's just like, it can't be true. She's not cheating on me. He's not cheating on me. He's not abusing me. He's not doing wrong to me. And we paint this pseudo-reality, this false sense of reality. We lie to ourselves. We convince ourselves of a lie. You know, it's easier for the mind to make up this fairy tale. You know, oh, I'm going to have a happy relationship. My relationship is great. You know, I have a happy marriage. You know, he loves me. He never would cheat on me. He never has cheated on me. She's never cheated on me ever. You know, she treats me well. She cooks for me. You know, we don't want to see things for what they really are if there's something bad that's going on in a relationship. Divine, we're talking about self-love. Self-love as it relates to relationships, because there's many different ways that we can exude or express self-love, you know, through, like I was saying in the beginning of the video, in terms of what we put into our bodies, what we eat. You know, when you see people that just out of shape, you know, and it leads to these health conditions, you have to actually do that. Do they really love them? How can they love themselves if they do that to themselves, you know? What we put onto our bodies, how we dress, that's a form and expression of self-love. But this video topic is focused on relationships, who we choose to interact with, who we bring into our inner circle represents the degree of self-love that we have. No, you inbox me. I'm such a busy woman. People always say, oh, inbox me. Oh, call me. No, you call me. Well, sorry, you guys can't call me, but you definitely can email me. I wouldn't suggest inbox, though. I would suggest email. So my email is posted on my Facebook page. If you guys ever want to connect, reach out, email me. My email is there. I get lots, of course, pretty sure you guys already know that I get lots of inboxes. People want to connect. People want to meet up. People want to date. People want to do a number of things. And I'm just like, if you are serious, because you have to realize we're all busy, right? And I hate to kind of put that out there. Oh, I'm busy, like I'm more busy than you guys. But I am a busy person. You know, I'm a full-time PhD student. I have 3 more semesters left. Hallelujah. You know, I'm kind of transitioning. You know, it's a long journey that I've been going through as a PhD student in clinical psychology. And of course, you guys know that with that, I've been going through so many changes, you know, and I talked about this the other day, how we're talking about identity. We're talking about ethnic identity. I'm like, even your professional identity, like, there needs to be more research on this, you know, because PhD students, you know, doctoral students, you know, or medical students, we go through so many changes, you know, and coming to terms with who we are, you know, and when our professional identity changes, it impacts, you know, our personal identity and how we see ourselves. It intersects with so many different other identities that we have, that it's just a lot going on, you know. So transitioning, this whole idea of transitioning from being a student, a doctoral student, to actually becoming a doctor and a professional, like, it's amazing. And then it reminds me of when I was in my first year of my PhD program, how one of my professors who taught my intercultural processes class, she said, and I remember this, she was like, you know, your SES is going to change. And a lot of students just like surprised. It's like, okay, I mean, we know this, but to really take it in and process it and see just a person's SES changing, how that impacts one's identity. You know, a lot of people undermine it, but the intersectionality of identities, you know, whether it's our ethnic identity, our professional identity, you know, our financial, you know, identity, like when your financial status changes, that I think does have an impact on one's ethnic identity, you know, and professional, like all these different things change. There's so many different changes happening at the same time. So I think that, yeah, in terms of looking at where I'm at now, I'm in the process of transition. So I'm a busy woman. I said all that just to say that. Yes. So if you want to do business or whatever it is, however you want to connect, send me an email. I do check my email like 3 times a day. I don't check my inbox messages, you know. If I do, it's probably like once a year. Like, I may get bored. I'm like, let me see, you know, who messaged me. And I'll go and I'll check my inbox messages on Facebook. But I don't check those regularly. I do check my email, authordleach@gmail.com, every day, because I have to, because that's where I get, you know, my, you know, information about school, work, clients, stuff like that comes to that email. And so I take that email more seriously when people contact me in that way. Also, with that being said, if you're going to contact me through that email, just say what it is, what reason you're contacting me, you know, because I feel like I get so many like spam email or people just trying to scam and just do all kinds of stuff. State your purpose, man. Just put it out there, you know. I've had a woman who's very prominent in the literary industry. She wanted to do business, which a lot of people do. They see, you know, my presence on social media, like, oh, you know, they get these ideas. We can collaborate. Let's do this. And they'll hit me up, you know, via the DM, and they're just like, oh, what's your phone number? And no, it can't go that way. You have to come right out and say, this is what I propose. Like, send me your email. Tell me what your proposal is. You don't have to give me every single minute detail about what it is you want to do, but give me an idea of why are you contacting me. Because that's going to determine if I entertain the conversation or if I just overlook it. And I have overlooked so many different emails. And it could be something that's very substantial, but come on, you got to get straight to the point, man. That's it. So going back to the topic, self-love as it relates to relationships, you know, which that's kind of connected because, you know, I myself have to put up my own safeguards because there's so many different people out there in the world. You know, you don't know what people's intentions are. You know, a lot of times people, of course, they have intentions that are very self-serving, which I'm not going to say this is a bad thing, you know. Everybody got their own needs that they have to get met, whether they're personal or professional, you know, or business needs. But sometimes, you know, their needs might contradict what it is that I stand for, you know. So I always have to be careful in who I interact with, you know, who I engage with, because we all should be careful, especially if you have a brand or a business, you know. One bad interaction, one bad business deal or relationship can fuck up everything. You know, I know a lot of you guys probably can attest to this, you know, doing business with the wrong people. Not to say Divine, that's you. I'm just kind of saying my rationale for my process and how I go about entertaining, you know, these contacts, you know, or these messages that people send to me, because I just have to be careful. And I think that to sum everything up, because I kind of want to leave you guys with this, because I have a person in mind who kind of inspired, you know, this video. And I just hate to see, you know, how people allow themselves to suffer. And I do think that it goes back to one's childhood, because if as a child, which I thank God and I think I'm pretty blessed to have had 2 loving parents who cared, you know, about me, who were married. Even though they separated when I was 12 years old, they showed me what love looks like, you know, especially my dad. You know, yes, it's important for a mother to love her child. My mom, of course, she loved me. She loved me her own way, you know. She was the one who was a disciplinarian in my household. But my dad, I think for a girl growing up, for a woman, it's important that she has the right kind of love from her dad, because that's going to set the trajectory of who she chooses, you know, to fall in love with, what kind of man she chooses to fall in love with. So yes, of course, I was raised by 2 parents, right? So yes, I had a mother who did not spare the rod, and that kind of relationship that she had with me was internalized, and of course as an adult made me yearn relationships with men who kind of exude that same kind of demeanor, dominant and aggressive, to a certain extent. But with my dad being very soft-hearted, very compassionate, being the listener, being the protector, being just a giver, it also instilled in me this representation of the kind of man that I know I deserve. And so I bumped into a lot of knuckleheads, throughout my life, of course. I'm 35 years old. But I always think about my dad in that. And I always think about like the great man that my dad is and how he's such a provider and a protector. Like, I was spoiled growing up. I got everything I wanted, even to this day. And it makes me think like, this is the kind of love that I deserve. And so I think it can be a challenge because we live in a society that is changing so fast. And so, I talked about this earlier, how a lot of men have, adopted this belief that relationships should be 50-50, egalitarian. They expect women to pay the bills. And I think, being that I grew up in a household where my dad, yes, my mom worked, but my dad, like, dude had, he was well paid. He good, took care of us. And that's the kind of man that I still look for, like, and that's, I know you have someone like, oh, that kind of man doesn't exist. Those men are long gone. That was back then. This is today. You're not going to have a man that's going to take care of you. It's going to pay all the bills. That's going to open the doors for you and lay out the red carpet. And I'm just like, well, honestly, those are the kind of men that I've dated. Like, my last relationship was with a guy who was like that. Did not want me to work, although he was open. He was like, okay, if you want to work, you can, but you're not required to. It's not like you have to pay the bills, It was okay with that. He paid the bills, and it's not that I can't contribute. There were times where I did contribute when we fell on hard times, and of course I had to take over, but for the most part, he had it, He was that kind of guy. That's the only kind of guys that I've really been attracted to, and that's just the kind of guy that I'm attracted to. I don't think that's ever going to change. And so that relationship lasted for 3 years, Prior to that, I was with a guy, dated him for 5 years, and we're still friends actually to this day. And it was the same kind of dynamic, like, he brought in the money, he paid the bills, and I feel like that is not something that is far-fetched. There are men out there that are like that, but I do caution women and seeking those kind of men or being attracted to those kind of men, that yes, you do have to be careful, because a lot of times with that comes a sense of control. So a man who feels like, okay, I pay all the bills, I take care of you, so I can dictate this and that, like, you have to be careful with that. It can get kind of tricky. But the bottom line is to know your self-worth. Value yourself. Know that you should be loved. Know that you should be loved. You should be cared for. You should be protected. You should be treated with the utmost respect. That's something that my dad always taught me. He showed me that. My dad never hit me, never raised his voice at me, never was disrespectful. Always showed me a good representation of what a man should be like. Took care of the household, cooked. My dad was, he's still alive. I don't know why I talk about like past. Well, I say was because when I was growing up, but he's still alive, cooked. Like, he was a man, handyman, just a well-rounded guy. Now, my mom, of course, she got her own perspective of him because she was married to him. But as his daughter, my dad was the man, and I still see him as the man. And if I know I talk about, of course, my relationship with my dad, right? And some women don't necessarily, have, father figures that set that example, or created this positive internal working model that they could kind of rely on in terms of choosing a male partner, they have absentee fathers, and I think that can be very complicated. You know, if you don't have that representation of what a man should look like and how love should look like from a man, then that can be very difficult, and you just want to be loved. You know, you just like, you'll just be happy. Like, if I can find a man that just loved me, they'll be satisfied. And that can be difficult, you know. That's why I think therapy is so important. And a great thing about therapy is that you can choose your therapist. And you don't just want to choose any therapist, you know. You just don't. Don't just like, okay, they're licensed, I'm going to choose them. No. There's so many therapists. There's different levels. So a master's level therapist means they have a master's degree and they're licensed. Doctoral level therapists, they have a PhD or a PsyD. PsyDs may be new to some of you guys, so it just basically means that they have a doctorate degree in psychology. But they have more training, they have more experience. You know, therapists who have doctorate degrees, they have to get a lot more hours, you know, before they got their degree. Of course, a lot more client hours. It's much more experience, you know. But does this mean that they're better? You know, sometimes I think people can kind of correlate the two and say, oh, well, just because you have a doctor, then, you know, you have more experience, that makes you a better therapist. Not necessarily. It just means they do have a lot more training and a lot more schooling. But you can find great master's level therapists out there. The difference between a master's level therapist and a doctor level therapist is that doctors have experience in research and experience in testing. So they may, in terms of their assessment of the problem when they're gathering information, may be a little bit more thorough, a little bit more detailed, because master's level clinicians, they don't really focus on research. You know, they're not like scientists, so to speak, whereas doctor level therapists are science. You know, research and science is really important to the work that we do. So we're going to come at it from a different angle. So it just all depends on, I guess, what it is that you want, you know. And also choosing a therapist, not just looking at the credentials, but looking at the demographic dynamic. So if you're an African American, which most people who watch my videos are, it may be important to you to choose an African American therapist. Now, whether it's male or female, that also may play a role. Now, in context of, I brought this up because in the context of the Imago therapy and psychodynamic, because remember I was talking about psychodynamic earlier and how it's important that, you know, the therapeutic relationship is a tool that therapists use in psychodynamic therapy for women who have an absence of a father figure. It may be helpful to have a male therapist, because through that relationship it can be a therapeutic effect. It can be very healing for a woman who had an absence of a father to have a male therapist to kind of fill that role vicariously in the context of therapy, and just have to make sure that this person is well trained and is professional. You can also check, I know a lot of you guys probably don't know, but it's public information to be able to look up any licensed clinician therapist, their license number, if they have any complaints against their license, you know, infractions. That's also important, because you just want to see who is this person I'm sharing my information with, you know, what's their track record, you know. That's really important in choosing a therapist. But that information is public, and you know we live in the information age. You can find out a lot of information about people online on your own. So that's something to consider. But it also can go the opposite direction, where just because, okay, you, let's say as a black female, right, who grew without a father, it may be a trigger for you to have a male therapist, you know, because honestly, some people who have that void, and seeing that a person may feel like they're trying to fill that void, that can easily be a trick, because you're like, kids, especially kids, think about kids who don't have a father, right? And then there in comes the step parent. What's the first thing they say? You not my dad. It's like they crave the attention of a parental figure. But meanwhile, they're like, you're not my dad. So that can initially be a challenge in developing rapport between you as a client and that male therapist. If you're a female client, because you may have that urge to reject him because he may represent what you didn't have. So it may not be easy for you to establish rapport with a male therapist, because you might see this male therapist as a father that you didn't have. And if you have negative perception in your mind of your own father, that's just going to be projected onto that male therapist. And so if he's a skilled therapist, though, even though it might be a challenge initially, he can still be able to work through those defenses and be able to use actually that resistance to build a healthy therapeutic relationship. So it just all depends. But I do encourage everyone watching this video, whether male or female, to, seek out therapy. Even if you are the most self-actualized person, where you feel like you have all the awareness in the world and you feel very rooted in who you are, and you know yourself inside and out, it's still great to have a therapist, because another pair of eyes is always good. And especially if they have good intentions and they mean well, they may see something that you haven't seen, that they may be able to uncover something about yourself that another therapist may not have been able to see, or you may not have been able to uncover, on your own, or through relationships with other people. So I think it's just a huge benefit. At the end of the day, like, I feel like we all want to be loved, but in order to really get the love that we deserve, we ourselves have to love ourselves. We have to know that we are worthy. Know how you're supposed to be treated. Some people's self-worth is so low. It's amazing what they can tolerate. It's just like, how can you, like, over and over again, you see women who will stay with men who cheat on them, and it's just like, oh, but he came back, but don't you believe you deserve better? Or maybe you've accepted a reality that you can't find anything better. That's just the way society is. All men cheat, so you're just going to accept it. You are part of the problem in thinking that, because think about it. We live in a society. My phone is breaking up. But we live in a society where all women just have this false belief that, okay, all men cheat. That's just the way things are. So we're just going to accept it and just deal with it and not resist it, not question it or confront it. Then guess what? That just enables men to continue to cheat and to continue to do that. Even men who don't even have a predisposition to cheating, they're like, all right, well, women say that's the acceptable thing to do. They're used to it, so they're just gonna consider it. They're gonna be curious about it and just join the rest of the men who cheat. We don't want to do that. We want to set this standard to say it's not acceptable. That's just like anything else that our society disagrees with, that we abhor, that we hate. We hate, when adults, abusers take advantage of children and rape them. We will not tolerate that in our society. So if you're just like, oh, well, that's just how rapists are, because they're just perpetuating a cycle because they've been raped, so they're just going to rape, children, and it's just the way our society is. No, you guys, we have not evolved or devolved to that kind of society. So feel free to continue this discussion below. I appreciate your perspective, your thoughts. This has been a very interesting topic, because, I hate to see women, even men, tolerate bad relationships, But it makes sense why they are in it, because it's something about themselves, something about them. And even when you have worked through all your shit and come to an awareness of who you are, you may still come across bad relationships, but at least you're more equipped, you're better equipped to deal with that kind of relationship. And with that being said, that's it, you guys. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I will catch you guys later. Love you guys. My phone keeps breaking up. I don't know if it's Facebook or what, but I know it's Easter, and I know a lot of you guys are probably in church, so you're going to be watching this video after it's posted. But I hope you guys had a blessed Easter day, Easter weekend, and I'll catch you guys later. Love all you guys. Bye.